You're a spiritual being in physical form, a dichotomy of light and dark, where energy equals mass on a journey designed to fulfill our personal legend and purpose, to use humanity throughout, to amplify and transcend, tame the ego, raise the humanity. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the High Vibe Zone.
Hey, y'all. Hey. Did I do the last one? I don't know. I feel like I take some time and breaks from these high vibe zones here and there, weaving in and out. Hello, LinkedIn and YouTube. Welcome to the High Vibe Zone. I'm your host, Therese Fonts. And if this is your first time, welcome to the High Vibe Zone. It's where we talk about all different types of things, turn it into high vibe transcendence, leaving little nuggets here and there. And if this is not your first time, welcome back. Regardless, time is relative. Drop it in the comments. Where are you joining me from? Where are you listening or watching? And what are you grateful for? And want to know your name. So hello. Stop on by. Super excited to have you. Oh, so many things to share. I will share the latest book that I am currently reading right now. I think this book is fire. The Tao Te Ching is amazing. I love philosophy. And so this book has just been just mind-blowing in some of the knowledge. And what's interesting is I have a lot of books, well, not a lot. I have a few books on philosophy and then books that kind of deal with the in-between. And it's so fascinating that a lot of the answers or just guidance are in some of these things. And so, yeah, I'm excited to talk with y'all today. I'm trying to see what has been going on in life. Had a really challenging day yesterday, really challenging. And it's, I love to stay positive, and at a default I am. And I've shared this message before, but if you are in a negative space and you're trying to say affirmations and you're trying to, make it through and push on, don't do it. Just allow that momentum to take you where it needs to go, because again, it is momentum that is going to lead you to getting out of that space. And that's exactly what happened. I needed what I needed. I needed to feel, I needed to heal, I needed to process, I needed to go through. And I did. And it was exactly what I needed. I didn't feel the need to explain why I was going through it. I was like, all right, this is where I'm at. And, it was really crappy, but I'm doing much better now. And I was thinking, should I do the high vibe zone? I'm not sure where I'm at. It gets better. Even when the overcast is there, the sun is always shining. Kim, hello, greetings. Thank you for joining me here in the High Vibe Zone. Kim, what are you grateful for? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear what you're grateful for. And where are you geographically? I always like to know where people are from, whether they're, in that place temporarily, in that place permanently, born and raised there. I'm always fascinated. But today we are going to get into a topic. I wrote a poem. I'm going to read you the poem. And the poem is called Don't Hire Me Because I'm Black. And that is what we're going to be talking about today in the High Vibe Zone, specifically around the hiring component. So I'm going to read the poem and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it, because I think that there's some great elements in terms of context that I can give. It's very simple in terms of how I wrote it. I do a lot of inspired writing, which means sometimes I wake up at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, and just start writing. And some of that stuff comes out. And so this is something that I wanted to share because it's been a topic over the last 2 to 3 years, at least in the spaces that I've been in, that have come up. And just sharing a different vibe than what DEI and a lot of companies have put out there in regards to hiring. So, Chicago, well, welcome, Chicago in the house. Thank you so much for being here. So throughout this conversation, if you have any questions or if you want to join me here in the High Vibe Zone, I have done it once, not planned, but I have a guest link ready. If you are interested in joining me in the High Vibe Zone, specifically from people from LinkedIn, I don't know how it works on YouTube. I don't have that open, but if you are on LinkedIn and want to come into this conversation with me, I can send you the guest link and you can jump on and we can have a dialogue or a conversation around this topic. But I'm going to get into the poem. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to share a few highlight points around it. So here we go. Don't hire me because I'm Black. Hire me because I shined. Hire me because my answers and background align. Hire me because I'm rad. Hire me because I'm a culture ad. Hire my humanity, hire my capacity, hire my skill, hire my will. Me being Black is secondary. I ask that you see my humanity. My experience is my own. I'm locked in the zone, or rather the flow state, where I make magic when I create, where the woo meets the work. I am not a talent, I am talented. To be simply understood that I will not fit, but my skills are legit. I am learning as I grow, keeping my humanity intact. Don't hire me because I'm Black. So we're going to talk about this because it is something that I felt in 2020 specifically. I mean, a lot of companies really putting out statements around hiring more Black people in their workplace. In fact, I worked with a couple companies and it got to the point where they were calling me up, asking me, hey, I just did a round of interviews. We're going to offer to this person, but they're not Black, or they're, a different ethnicity than, or they look like the rest of us. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, why not just hire the right person for the job, the person that aligns with what you're looking to do, and not carry this type of guilt with you. And then in the same process, it's like, I don't want to be hired just because I'm Black. I don't want to be hired because you have some initiative that was built out of, we got to do this because everybody else is doing it. I much rather be hired because you see that I can bring value, because I think that what's happening through the messaging, and specifically within DEI, it's like, oh, you need to hire more of this type of demographic, but there's a reason why that type of demographic isn't there. Now, I think it's the root versus the symptom, but it's like really paying attention to what are you asking people to do and what is the nature of that? Because can you hold space for the type of people that you're bringing in? If not, they're just going to leave. And I think we saw a lot of that too. But I mean, I think back, and I've shared this before. My mother was during a lot of 2020, and we were talking about different things that were going on, hiring initiatives. And my mom was telling me that she was hired during the affirmative action. And so some of y'all might know what that bill was passed. And this was before my time, I think. I'm pretty sure. But my mom was hired, one of her first jobs, and she was at the bottom of a memo announcing that she was hired. And it was because of initiative to get more Black people and women in the workplace. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason why she was hired, but it was an incentive for the company to align with what was happening in the country and the affirmative action. And I just, I understand that folks want to diversify the workplace. And I want to be very clear about this. By default, every single person in definition are diverse. Every single person that you come across is diverse. So diversity takes care of itself. I understand that the fact that people want to see more of the collective of our humanity in one space, but the way that you go about it is you don't guilt and create rushed initiatives to do so. There's a reason that the vibe isn't there for those people. And it's almost like I use this example of why are, if you want to attract more parents into the demographic, into your workplace, let's use parents for an example and step out of this. Why do why you're trying to attract more parents, but you don't have a workplace that is conducive to parents and caregivers? There's a reason there. So people are like, we need more Black people. We need more. There's a reason why, for whatever reason, something in your hiring process, something in the way that you present yourself, there's a reason why that is happening. And what I found out is that companies didn't really take time to figure that component out. Like, why is that happening? It didn't just happen on accident. And should you just hire someone because of their demographic, because of how they identify, because of their ethnicity? No, nobody wants to feel that. Nobody wants to be that. And while it might appear good, probably causing more problems for yourself when you're doing stuff like that. Okay, got a comment here. White women were the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. Interesting. I did not know that. I didn't really study what was going down. I just heard from a firsthand experience around that. But thank you so much for sharing that comment. I don't know. For those that are watching and listening, would you rather be hired because you can do the job well, you're aligned with the role, you're aligned with what the messaging is, you're aligned, that's where your passions lie? Or would you rather be hired for something that's just more on the outside? Like, what feels better? It's almost like, I don't know if it's almost like dating. You're just dating someone. Yes, the attractive component is really key, but if you're dating someone with a really not very good disposition, that's going to come out in the relationship. It's not going to make it healthy. It's not going to make it long term. I can't really say that I have been factually hired because of my ethnicity, but I will say that I have been in many situations where I have been the only, and I've seen some of the challenges that faces. And I think it really does become part of the inauthentic components of hiring that companies put out there, putting out statements that we're going to hire, even down to the number. They have a metric. We're not cattle. And to really classify people like that, I think is really messed up, especially given that the workplace has a history of not seeing the human. This just takes it another step further. It's like, we don't need to see the human. We just need to see the ethnicity, the color in the workplace, if you're looking at equity, if you're looking at inclusion, breaking those two down, it defeats the purpose. So when you think about, hiring someone beyond what they present in terms of their demographic, it just makes, if you can create a process and clean up the stuff that's inside the workplace, inside the culture, that is causing you to not attract certain people like that might fit different demographics, is going to be really key. I had a couple of notes that I wanted to share with y'all here. Hire the human. Like, at the end of the day, everybody that is coming to you is human. And if you can focus on hiring the human, you start to remove some of these blockers that are coming up, and you create a more meaningful process for people coming in. I think we forgot the question that we're trying to ask. Like, we have all these answers, but we have forgotten the question when it comes to this hiring. So why is this important? Where is this coming from? What is the nature? You all hear me talk about the vibration and the frequency of something, the birthing of something. How is birthing this type of behavior going to affect, hurt, help? Paying attention to that. You can't, like I said, people are not cattle. You can't just herd people in. And right now we have companies that are dedicated to really representing Black and brown folks, which I think is great. I think it's great that that's happening, but I also think that the internal work needs to be done. I was working at a recruiting agency and working on an inclusion initiative, specifically inclusion. And part of the things that the recruiters would get was from their clients was, hey, we need to hire more women, or we need to hire more Black engineers, or we need to hire this. And something that I was educating on as I was building out these initiatives was ask them why and how their environment is conducive for the type of demographic that they're bringing in, especially if they have in a homogenous workplace. Got to be mindful of that. And there's a reason, because what's going to happen is you're going to invest all this time and money into hiring someone, which is a lot of money. The data's out there. I'm not a numbers person, but it's out there, and it's a lot of money to replace a person doing the job, not only the transfer of knowledge, but the onboarding component, the offboarding component, given that everything goes well. All of those things really cost money, time, and energy, and affect the culture. All of that affects the culture. You want to make sure that if you're asking for a specific demographic, which at the end of the day, if your vibration of the workplace is correct and right, that demographic will flow through. It will come to you. You don't need to, there's a reason why historically there's certain people not in the workplace. There's a reason. And I think figuring that out first is really key. And it doesn't mean you have to blame someone. It just means you need to figure this out, because you want the longevity of your people to be at the work in the environment, in the job that they are in. But if you hire them off of, an initiative that was forced, or an initiative that doesn't necessarily feel good in terms of, it wasn't birthed or created in the right context, the right space, it's not going to last. It is going to have a boomerang effect. And the person and the people that are going to get hurt in that effect are most likely the people that you hired based off of that. And so I think that's what we're also seeing, is environments that were never truly ready to hold certain spaces for humanity. And now, it just creates a toxic environment for folks. It doesn't really feel good. You're not able to allow them to shine, and you have an ulterior motive, and that's really not healthy. And I want to also point out, in the poem, it talks about talent. Like, I just have had these thoughts around, like, am I talent or am I talented? Like, talent is a thing. And I feel like, for whatever reason, the languages that we're using around how we hire is all designed to remove the human from the component of it, and just add more and more blockers of labels. The more labels that you have on yourself, like, think of it as like sticky notes. There's this visual that I use in a workshop around labels and stereotypes, and this person is covered in certain sticky notes that have different things on them. You think about it, it covers up the human. So the more removed that we are, it's like we're referring to people as talent and minorities and all of these different things. It's just negating the fact that you are dealing with a human being. And regardless of what society has categorized as human as, regardless of what you're hearing and how you're navigating, you really need to ground yourself in that and allow that humanity in the hiring component to really shine, because it makes a huge difference. Makes a difference in the culture, makes a difference in how the company is ran, how the company attracts, how the company, does all different kinds of things. And so I'm not trying to change the words that people are using. I'm just trying to bring light to the fact that I love looking at the linear components of where these words are coming from, because they add a lunar component to how we're trying to solve things. I mean, DEI in itself is I've shared so many thoughts on this, has so much wrapped into it that it's really becoming, I don't know what it's going to become in the future, but I wonder if it's going to get wrapped into this interesting notion of HR, which I believe is becoming archaic. And traditional HR is just not conducive to the human being. And I don't sense that DEI, depending on how the language is, like if DEI is using words like minority and acronyms. Let me just say this, and I'll put this, I mean, obviously on the record, but like I've never referred to myself as an acronym, a POC, a BIPOC. Like I didn't hear those words until 2020. It's interesting. I was on I use Nextdoor. Shout out to Nextdoor if y'all are out there. And there was a post by a neighbor that said, I want to do a parade for the BIPOC people in our community. And it was fine. And then somebody who lived in the community responded, what is BIPOC? And this person was very light skinned, but she was Black. And so she's asking this question. And the person sent her a Google link and was like, Google it. And she responded back with, I'm Black. I don't even know what this means. And if you're saying my life matters and you're not willing to explain this to me, like what is going on here? That person, the neighbor that posted that, ended up taking that post down. And it's like, I've never described myself as that. I would be floored if my husband ever referred, like, oh, my wife is a POC. And I'm not trying to make fun of it, but it's just like, again, it just removes the component from it. Say what it is. Say what it is, or don't say what it isn't. You know, like just get to the root of the human component and then build from there. Same with minorities. Y'all have heard me talk about this. There's an episode, Say the N-word, I'll say it with you. And it talks a lot about just the wording that we're using within the DEI world. And I kind of think about this a lot because I wonder where we're going. I imagine that most folks, however they identify, at the end of the day, really just want their humanity seen, heard, and witnessed and honored. And the more that we continue to add layers upon that, it makes it harder for us to get there. So the louder that people are and the more stuff that's out there, but then we keep missing the mark. We come up with these solutions and these answers, but we don't have the specific question. And I think it's really important for us to think about this. So this poem was really something that I think about. I mean, something that I've seen lately, like I've mentioned to y'all, I haven't had cable for six years. And we occasionally stream the sports and they have commercials. Over the last 2 years, I mean, I guess between 6 years and now, I have seen a uptick in representation in commercials. And I'm not knocking that. I think that's great, but it's a lot, even to the point where my daughter's like, every commercial has another Black person in it, which is fine. But there are more people in this world. And I think that if we don't find the question that we're trying to answer, we're going to get so far off from its point that we're going to be like, none of this is transcending, none of this is making sense. And while I'm on the topic, this is kind of off the topic, but you know, I love LinkedIn. I really do. Because I've been able to connect with people from different areas of life, different viewpoints, and I don't get into arguments with people on LinkedIn. I'm very inspired by people that have different views than I do. So, I mean, for example, I have a lot of people that are in the space of anti-racism, and I have no quarrels. I read their posts. I might not agree with what they're saying, but that's not the point of this interaction. Like it's not for me to go on there and say what you're saying is wrong. This is how it's supposed to be done. I love the quote, if you have a choice to be right or be kind, choose kind. And so I just am grateful for the people on LinkedIn that have such different views than I do in terms of what's going on. One of the things that have come up a lot and something I've seen a lot on LinkedIn is about white supremacy, ending white supremacy. And I sit in that because I wonder, I keep hearing this about it. Like, this is what white people do. And this is how, white supremacy. And I'm very, very curious of what is it supposed to look like? What is that vision? I want to know what that is. Very similar to Mother Teresa when she was asked about going to an anti-protest, and she said, I was once asked why I don't participate in anti-war demonstrations. I said that I will never do that, but as soon as you have a pro-peace rally, I'll be there. I'm very curious about what the balance is, because we tend to, as humans, as our nature, overcomplicate things. We tend to go to the extreme. There's so much magic in the middle, and there's a balance for a reason. Life is not fair, but it is balanced. And as I hear people talk about white supremacy, I don't, so that is not my area of expertise. It is not something that I dive into. But when I hear about it, it's always in a negative. It's always in a don't do this or stop doing this or this, blah, blah. But I'm very curious about what that vision is supposed to look like, given that, okay, let's just agree that the system was not built for everybody. And I mean, I look back in history and this just so y'all know where my brain goes. If we're going to talk about like racism and white supremacy and just those vibrations of things, this has been happening for hundreds of years, thousands of years. This goes back to where temples have been ruined because of the same thing that we're dealing with now. So this is very, very ancient. It's not new in any sense. And the more that you expand out in the world, you start to see these other isms show up. And I talk about the isms in that component as well. And so I'm just very curious of what the world is supposed to look like and what that vision is from a positive sense. That is one thing that I haven't seen on LinkedIn. I would love to have a virtual tier conversation with someone that could tell me what that is based off of the vision versus the situation and the circumstance. Because if we stay there, we'll never get there. If we stay here, we'll never get there. And so very curious of like, what is that vision? What is it supposed to look like? And I mean, y'all know I dab in the way of the universe, and I just have different thoughts in those ways. But I also realize that we're in a physical space of reality, and I understand what that means as well. I think that's one of the challenges that I have with some of this stuff, which I won't go into now. But how this all ties in is, if we're building off of a specific system and then we're telling people to operate within that system, the thread of that energy isn't going to transcend the system. It's just going to continue to feed. It's just going to continue to feed the programming. So when you're hiring people that based off of a specific demographic, you're funneling, resumes in, and you want to see 8 resumes from Black people, and you're not honoring the authentic flow of the space and the human and the lunar component of what is, it takes out the humanity from it all. I'll share this last bit and then I'm gonna skedaddle. But I remember a company that had never worked on DEI before was introducing DEI and saying one of their first initiatives is to hire more Black people. Now I was one of, I don't know, 2 or 3 Black people in the company of, I don't know how many people we had, like maybe 70, maybe a little bit less. And so they were like, this is our first initiative. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to look at resumes. We're going to interview at least, 2 out of the 5 people we interview in final rounds. I'm sure y'all have heard this before. Final rounds are going to be Black, those type of things. And an employee spoke up and was like, well, isn't that somewhat discriminatory? Doesn't that somehow discriminate against people that aren't Black? And, there was all of this, the answer that was given was very templated and very much about what that person had heard or been taught. And it didn't sit right. I understand what companies are trying to do. I just don't necessarily agree with the methods. And I don't think that the answer matches the question. And I don't even think that the question has been asked. What does this look like? How are you going to honor whatever demographic you bring into the workplace? We haven't even done that yet. We have people forming unions because the HR isn't for the human. So you're bringing in anybody or specific people into that environment. It's not going to end well. It's almost like all of these DEI positions that were birthed, and a bunch of them ended, or people left or got burnt out. It's just, I think that we really need to pay attention to this. So I hope my poem resonated. I know it resonated. I know that there are other people that look like me that feel the same way, that we do not want to be hired just because of our skin tone. And there are people that don't want to participate in hiring like that because it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And it is, if the environment is not right, it will backfire. And I know that some people have experienced that in so many ways. It also makes it hard to like if you don't have, I mean, honestly, bottom line, there's a reason. There's a reason why, and I've said this before, so I'm like repeating myself. I tend to do that. There's a reason why a specific demographic isn't in your workplace. Find out why. Work on that. Do the work on that, and then see what flows in. Reminds me of a Jamaican saying, what is for you can unfor you. What is for you cannot be unfor you. And you don't need to force things to happen, especially in the workplace. There's been enough of that. It's time to heal the workforce in terms of making it more conducive to our humanity. It's been time. It's been time. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to share. Do I have any other notes I want to share with y'all? Nope. Asking what the question is. So nobody wants to join me right now, which is fine. I'm going to hop off. I'm trying to think. Oh, this is what I like to call the golden hour. If you've noticed, there's like rainbows that are coming in. I have like a crystal up there and the lights. It's just wonderful. It's a great time of day. So getting blessed with the rainbows. But I want to thank you so much for being here with me in the High Vibe Zone. If you have any questions or any thoughts about what I mentioned or what I talked about, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm always here to have a conversation, and I'm not here to be right. I'm not here for you to be wrong or vice versa. I'm just here to, I do believe in our humanity. I do believe that there is more good than bad. I believe that we are more capable than what we know. I've been meditating a lot on this phrase in Tupac's song called Changes. Change the way we eat, we change the way we live, change the way we treat each other, because the old way isn't working. So we need to find a new way. And I find it fascinating that he talks about the food that we consume, because that is the energy and the life force in which we bring on. And we talked about this in the High Vibe Zone, how food carries a frequency. So if you're using low frequency food, you're going to carry a lower vibration and frequency. Your energy is not going to be where it's supposed to be. Change the way that we live. How are we living? How are we engaging? Do we have unity in our community? What does that look like? What is our lifestyle? Is our living to consume and get? Is it to build on what we have? Is it to I have and you don't? Is it that? Change the way we treat each other. Like, those are all very big components. And I wonder if the reason why things aren't changing is because those things aren't changing. Not fully changing the way that we eat, not changing the way that we live, and definitely not changing the way we treat each other. LinkedIn, I see it. I see some of these comments on here. I'm just like, oh my goodness. It's like, I'm just, some of them are ruthless. I just don't understand how, someone can claim to care about humans, but then talk and treat somebody the way that they do on social media, someone you've never even met. Someone that you've never even met. It's like, I don't even know what makes it worse. Whether you met them or didn't meet them, it doesn't matter. They're another human going through their experience, going through their lesson, and you have no idea where they are. They have no idea where you are. And that type of conflict is not healthy. There's something, like I said, I'm reading the Tao Te Ching, and there's something in here that is said multiple different times. And it basically says, see if I can find it. I think it's in the When there is no competition, we will live in peace. It's from the 8th passage in here. And I think that's big when we stop seeing each other as competition, when we stop trying to eliminate the other person, their experience, their humanity, there will be peace. But until we get that, and competition on all levels, it's not just like, oh, I'm competing against you. It's the energy in which you're competing. But I've said enough in the high vibe zone around this conversation. Let me know if you want to have a conversation with me. Let me just throw this up here real quick. Where is it? Ba-dow. There we go. Well, connect with me on LinkedIn first. Like if we're already connected, just send me a note. I take a little bit of time to get to them, but I do get to them. But if you're interested in connecting with me in other ways, you can check out Culture Circle. That is my culture partner site where I work with companies on building healthy and inclusive workplace culture. So you can go check that out and connect with me there. But I want to thank you so much for being here, whether you watch live or the replay. Again, any questions that you have, let me know. I'm by no means an expert. Not sure if y'all saw the quote I posted. In the eyes of the beginner, there are millions of options. In the eyes of the expert, there are one or two. So I do not claim to be an expert. I'm a beginner in all things life. Haven't been on this planet for very, very long. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I'm open for conversation. I love philosophy, love thought exchange, and I really do appreciate for every connection that I have, whether we agree or don't. It's not about right or wrong. It's about understanding. And I am grateful for just the difference of thought because it helps me understand. And that's ultimately what I want to do. And I'm grateful. So thank you so much. Light, love, and gratitude. I hope you all have a really great rest of your day. And I will see y'all soon.
You're a spiritual being in physical form, a dichotomy of light and dark, where energy equals mass on a journey designed to fulfill our personal legend and purpose, to use humanity throughout, to amplify and transcend, tame the ego, raise the humanity. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the High Vibe Zone.